primaries or not political parties. You know, the Supreme Court has pronounced on this matter several times. You know, there's the case of Imam against Ushishi. The Supreme Court was very clear that based on the provision of that law, that it was the right of the today will be to apply the of INEC. But they cannot bring out the manual as will happen today and forward it to the president at time. Secondly, the issue of direct transmission is quite important in the election. It's like a revolution that's going to happen, and it's going to make a lot of things easier. If you look at the Anambra elections, and even including case management that will come up, is a little bit better. So I feel that these provisions of the law is quite fundamental and critical to us.
All right, Festus Okoye, let's also talk about the innovations or reforms that the INEC has actually come up with for the 2023 elections. I also remember that the chairman made some statement that ahead of these elections, there would be some innovation. Now, in the Anambra governorship elections, we also witnessed the use of the beavers. Can you kindly tell us about the innovations and reforms?
Well, this commission has gone a long way in trying to reform our electoral process, at least within the administrative competence of the commission. One of the things we have done is to, as much as possible, reduce human interference in the electoral process. So for political party nominations, in terms of the submission of the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates, we no longer allow political parties to submit the names, the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates manually. So what we do is that we have created what we call a party nomination portal through which political parties upload the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates to our central portal. The same thing applies to domestic election observers and international election observers as well as photographs, voter. If the particulars and biometrics cannot be found in the register, the implication is that the person is engaged in identity theft, or the person is not the person who he or she claims to be, and the person will not be allowed to vote. The third thing we have done, and we will continue to do, is to upload polling unit results into our INEC result viewing portal. We are going to do all these things, whether we have a new electoral framework or we don't have a new electoral framework. But I think it is important, and it's imperative, and it's also very fundamental for us to have a new electoral legal framework, because the issue of whether we use the voters register, the registered voters, for purposes of determining overvoting, or we use the accredited voters, has been taken care of in the new bill sought to be attended to. And also the issue of electronic transmission of results, and also using either the forms filled manually or the electronically transmitted results for purposes of making a determination on who has won the election and who has not won, have been taken care of in the new bill. And so all these things will come to play. But whether the bill is signed or not, this particular commission will not wait indefinitely for the signing of this bill. After some time, if the bill is not signed, we may be forced to release the timetable and schedule of activities for the 2023 general elections based on the existing electoral legal framework, because that is what we are using as at present. That is what we are using for the purposes of the Ekiti governorship election and the Ondo governorship elections, and some of the 6 by-elections that we've scheduled for the 26th day of February 2022.
Okay. I'll stay with you, Mr. Festus Okoye. In previous times, and you've talked about the existing legal framework and the importance of having this sorted out before the electoral timetable is released. In the previous elections, if I'm not mistaken, in the either the 2015 or 2019 elections, 1 or 2 changes were brought about as far as elections in Nigeria are concerned, but were not implemented or passed because of the closeness of the time of the passage of the bill to the elections. We look at things like electronic voting and all that. Are we confident that these changes can be comfortably and successfully implemented with an election that is barely 900, just over 900 days ahead 390 days, 96 days from now? Are we confident that these changes can be successfully implemented by INEC? That's number one. Number two, are there any other reasons, because you talked about the legal framework, for which INEC cannot release electoral timetable before the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill?
Let me be very, very clear on this. There are at least 8 clauses in the new bill that are very critical and fundamental. And these are timelines that are slightly mandatory. One, if you look at clause 3.3 in the new bill, it says that it makes it mandatory for the funds due to the Independent National Electoral Commission to be released to the Commission at least a year before the election. This thing can be done administratively, whether the bill is passed or not. The president can, and the authorities can release the funds due to the commission, whether the bill is passed or not. I've talked about the second one relating to the notice of election, which says that the commission shall give notice of elections at least 360 days before the date fixed for the conduct of election. That's the second one. Now, the third one is also very, very fundamental. Prior to this particular, before this particular bill, and in the existing legal framework, political parties are obligated to submit the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates 60 days to the conduct of election. But in the new electoral bill, the time frame has been changed to 180 days. Not only that, in terms of political associations wanting to transmute to political parties, prior to this particular period, the period for the submission of the applications was 6 months. But in the new bill, it has been extended to 12, it's been made 12 months. So these are some of the timelines that are very, very germane. And if we release the electoral timetable now, and the bill becomes law, and the period for the giving of this particular notice has elapsed, it will now create a very big logjam for the Independent National Electoral Commission. But as I pointed out, we cannot wait ad infinitum for this particular bill to be signed into law. Time is really running out in relation to some of the timelines imputed in the bill. But we are going to proceed with our preparations. There are some gadgets and some equipment that need to be purchased before the signing into law. I mean, at least a year before the general elections. We are going ahead with some of these things. We have made our submissions to the National Assembly in terms of the funds we need to be appropriated for the conduct of the 2023 general elections. And we have imputed some of these things into the law. In terms of the electronic transmission of results, what we have said is that what the Commission needs is for some of the impediments to the electronic collation of results to be removed from the electoral legal framework so that we can collate electronically. We can transmit results electronically now. But if you look at the law critically, and if you just read it in very, very clear terms, it will be difficult for you to do electronic collation of results and the announcement of results without the Electoral Act being amended to accommodate that. But in terms of transmission of election results, the Constitution and the other constitutive legal instruments gives us the power to transmit election results and also to conduct elections. And we don't need any further legislation in relation to this. So administratively, we are doing a lot, and there are certain things we don't need the law to be amended before we can do.
Including the use of the beavers. We'd like to get clarification on that. Of course, this is Nigeria, and then, there are cases where the legality of these technology might be questioned. And so are you saying that internally, that the legal framework for your institution can actually make for or cover up for the use of the beavers without the law being signed?
Definitely. If, for instance, if you look at the section 49 of the existing act, it provides that a person intending to vote with his voter's card shall present himself to the presiding officer at the polling unit in the constituency in which he is registered with his voter's card. Then it goes further to provide that the presiding officer shall, on being satisfied that the name of the person is on the register of voters, issue him a ballot paper and indicate on the register that the person has voted. Now, the BVAS is an equipment that is used to authenticate whether you are the person you purport to be. So the Supreme Court validated the use of the smart card reader in the election for the purposes of making a determination on whether the person that has come to the polling unit is the actual person that has registered. What the issue is, the controversy was around whether the data from the BVAS can be used to make a determination in relation to overvoting in an election. And the Supreme Court said no, that if you want to determine overvoting in any election, you have to go to the voters register and all the other forms used in the election. So the issue of whether the presiding officer can use the BVAS or the smart card reader to make a determination on whether the person who has come to vote is the owner of the permanent voters card was never an issue, and the Supreme Court validated that. So we don't have an issue with the BVAS.
Okay, so let's bring in John Gall now. Some people are saying that with the indirect primaries clause in that electoral act, it's just the tactics to stall the entire system, and that we might probably just fall back to the 2010 electoral act or 2011. Do you see a possibility of we having this as a bill, and of course having INEC have enough time to prepare for the elections?
Well, I think like Barrister Festus Okoye has said already, the existing electoral act has been very clear about the mode of conducting primaries, which provides for consensus, direct and indirect primaries. Even if the electoral act is not amended, political parties, both of the APC and the PDP, have used direct and indirect primaries, so it's not a problem. If you amend the act, and the president, having refused to assent to that bill, has refused to legalize the use of direct primaries as the only mode of conducting primaries. Now, what is happening now is that my opinion from what I've seen from the National Assembly and my understanding of the legislature, they will not override the president. We are going to have Section 87, the old Section 87 of the bill restored, of the act, yes, of the bill restored back into law. So the political parties will have all of that option. My worry and concern has been with the use of the word shall with respect to the monitoring of party primaries by INEC, which was not the provision in the law before. You know, it was an observatory responsibility. The new law, if it was signed, would have made it compulsory for INEC. Now, the question is that direct primaries is like conducting a general election. 8,800 and something council ward around the country. INEC, I don't want to feel that INEC does not have the capacity, but they may not have the funding required by virtue of their budget to carry out that process. And the period of time provided for is too short. That's where I was saying the challenge was going to come up. So I believe that what the National Assembly should do under Section 58, sub 4 of the Constitution is to amend that bill in line with the observation raised by Mr. President and send it back to Mr. President for assent. That will restore towards the status quo of what used to be in the old law. My opinion as a lawyer has always been that, and as a legislator has always been that, trying to impose one mode of conducting primaries on all political parties is undemocratic and draconian.
No, so the reason why a lot of persons are very big on the Electoral Act or the law being passed and looking forward to 2023 is because of the transmission of results electronically. And so that's where, you know, the whole of this contention lie. Of course, you also have the clause that seem to be stalling the process. And a lot of people are saying that we might not in 2023 transmit, you know, results electronically with the back and forth. I mean, if it has to go through the National Assembly, getting back to the president, we're talking about time now. So I'd like to ask you, you're a lawyer, you understand the workings, I mean a lawmaker, former lawmaker, and of course a legal practitioner, you understand the workings of the system. So do you see a possibility that, you know, this becomes a reality and then we transmit results electronically in 2023?
Yes, that's what will happen. I've gone through the bill, even though there's some provisions of the bill that, you know, look contradictory to me with respect to the collation. Transmission, not a problem, but particularly with the issue of electronic collation of results and all of that. But I believe that the National Assembly will take care of that provision because a lot of issues has been raised with regard to that. But on the part of INEC, to be able to carry out a successful implementation of an electoral process, you need to put together your institutional framework, you need to put together your legal framework. The institutional framework has done a lot. They have institutional memory. INEC has conducted several elections. They have capacity within INEC to conduct that election. The procedure of having ad hoc staff from the university to conduct that election has been done and has been successful. The main challenge has been the legal framework, because the legal framework is a vehicle that is required. You don't have, you will not understand or appreciate what Mr. Okoye is saying unless you look at the guidelines that INEC produced before the elections and the manual. That guideline is very critical. It gives you a clear direction of what is heading to. So I believe that the electronic transmission of results, which is going to be a revolution of electoral system, will happen. I believe that the National Assembly will carry out the amendments in that bill and send it back to the President. I believe that the National Assembly will not override the assent to the President. And with that, with the provision of the Electoral Act and with the assent by the President, the legal framework will be effective, and then there will be direct transmission of results.
Okay, Mr. John Golebo, you talked about the provisions of the Constitution and regarding the President and his powers. As far as the passage of or the control of the National Assembly is concerned, a relationship, I should say. With the National Assembly having to look at this bill again and do what the President wants, are we not yet again seeing that national, federal legislature is a rubber stamp?
Well, it's not an issue of rubber stamp. The Constitution is very clear with respect to the provisions of the procedure provided for the passage of a bill. If you look at Section 58 of the Constitution, Section 58 sub 4 does not give the President the discretion to pick and choose the provision of the bill which he can assent and not assent, particularly because of the manner, the model of drafting that was adopted in this bill. There's a model of drafting that will adopt that will separate the various provisions and make it easy for the President. And if that bill is divided into several bills, the President can sign Bill 1 and not sign Bill 2. Here, everything was clubbed up together. The President refused to sign. Now, the powers now lies with the National Assembly that has that power under Section 58, sub 2 of the Constitution. That section gives them the power, to be able to do two things. Number one, they veto the assent to the President, pass it again the way it is, and it becomes law. Number two is read the letter of the President, amend the bill, and send it back. That is the procedure. Usually, what happens is that there's a lot of lobbying that goes on in the legislature. Remember that you have the ruling party, APC, they have their caucus, they have the leader, you have the opposition party, PDP, they have their minority leader, their minority caucus. There's a lobby that will go on. Remember that the governors also had intervened through the governors forum, and most of the National Assembly members also listen to the governors. Then you also know that the President is an APC president. They also have the APC caucus and the APC governors forum. It is not a rubber stamp issue. It's a legislature at work. It's the issue of lobbying in democracy that happens. So at the end of the day, once the structure of the legislature, the administrative structure of the leadership, and that of the presidency, which is linked up to the presidential advisor, happens, things like this will happen. You may not be able to draw the numbers to override the president's veto to this bill because of the issue of lobbying. The letter by the president itself on his own gave a clear direction. The president was sincere, understood the provisions of the Electoral Act and the implication to the election clear to that issue. And then, in summary, we know that the main concern in this amendment pulled it through or withdrew from it.
Process of registration and also issuing of the PVCs, and what are the number of registered voters as we are speaking in the entire country?
Well, you see, this particular commission engaged in what I call a revolution. A revolution in the sense that for 25 years, no commission succeeded in increasing the number of polling units we had in this country. So this particular commission broke that 25-year-old logjam by increasing access of the Nigerian people to additional polling units. So as of today, we have over 176,000 polling units. And some of these polling units have been taken closer to the people, closer to their homes, so that persons with disability can easily access the polling units. The elderly can easily access the polling units. Lactating mothers can easily access the polling units, and so on. So that's one revolution we have carried out. And we believe that with this particular access, the people will have a closer affinity to the various polling units. Secondly, for the purposes of the registration of voters, we have introduced what we call an online pre-registration process through which young Nigerians especially, and those who have access to their computers, who have access to smartphones and so on, can do their pre-registration before going to our offices to go and capture for the purposes of capturing their biometrics. Now, we have been carrying out this registration in our state offices and our local government offices on security grounds. But I believe that with the consultations we are doing with all the different stakeholders, we may devolve the registration process to over 2,000 registration centers to make it easier for people to register. So we believe that so many of our people are going to register. But you know, the issue of a voter party has its own variables, and there are all sorts of explanations on why there's voter party. Sometimes on election day, you see people playing football. Sometimes on election day, people may have the perception that their votes will not count. But I believe that with the measures we have put in place and with all the revolutionary changes we have introduced, our people are beginning to have confidence that their votes will count, and they are beginning to re-engage more assiduously with the electoral process. So we are confident that despite the fact that we entered into the 2019 general election with a total registered voter population of 84 million, that with the new measures we have put in place, there's a possibility that we may register at least over 15 million additional voters before we close the registration process.
All right, a very quick one, Mr. Okoye. When does the C continuous voter registration resume? Has it already resumed? Just very quickly, please.
No, it's ongoing. What we are trying to do is to devolve more to the local areas so that more people, it will be closer to the people and more people will register. So it's ongoing, and it will last for at least the next 6 months.
All right. Thank you very much. Festus Okoye, a National Commissioner for Voter Education, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and of course, former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, John Golebo. Thank you very much for joining us and for offering your expert analysis on this particular topic.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Well, it has been an interesting conversation. I've been talking about the electoral umpire, INEC, and their decision not to release the timetable, and also what it means for the country. Fingers are crossed. We'll definitely see how all of these events unfold. We will be taking a short break right now, and when we return, we'll just be looking at the second conversation where, you know, the pyramid, rice pyramid has been unveiled, and what does this mean for the economy in Nigeria? We'll be right back.
I used to care for the world's opinion. I used to beg for validation. But the fire that burned in me was hotter. And the passion that lived in me had a voice of its own. So I stopped waiting and started to act. I stopped fearing and started to live. And when they thought I would fail, I stepped into my power.
Because my time is now.
Amstel Malta, be your best.
Whether you like it or not, the dryness and dust is coming. And this time, it might not give up that easily. But do the people have the power to shake it off?
Well, of course they do, and you do too. Kick dry skin to the curb and get smooth, intensely nourished skin with Nivea's deep moisture lotions and lip balms. Follow the story online, #DoneWithDryness.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment of winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
I miss them.
Well, they should be on their way by now.
Will it feel like it used to? With everyone so busy these days.
It will be fine.
Suddenly, feels like I'm gonna fall. I can see all of my dreams so perfectly.
Look at lineup! Single file!
Love's not a dream at all. Somebody.
Grandpa, what was Grandma like?
She always found ways to bring us all together. It took me a while to discover how she does it.
Devon Kings, taste that brings us all together.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. This is our second conversation and the last for the show this morning. We look at the unveiling of the rice pyramid by President Muhammadu Buhari, and some persons have described this as the largest pyramid in Africa. However, we do have a guest joining the conversation, Mary Afan, an agro-farm president of a small-scale women enterprise. I hope I got that correctly. Mary Afan, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, let's quickly share your thoughts on this. I mean, with the unveiling of the rice pyramid, what does this mean for the Nigerian economy and the agricultural sector?
Thank you very much. I the national president of farmers. The training of rice to us as the farmers is a very one of the biggest achievements that the farmers would, be happy of that process. And it's something that has happened that for a very long time. Only for us to read about, we are not pyramids, we actually expand one of them. And we believe that the right pyramid that is going to go a long way to, bring to Nigeria, reduce the high cost of food prices other women farmers. We are the producers of this that makes up the pyramid.
All right, so we seem to be having
How
poor audio right now. Mary Afan would definitely take a break now, and we hope to connect with you in a bit. We are having some poor connection. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy. It's still The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We apologize for being unable to bring you that conversation. Hopefully, we're able to connect with our guest, Mary Afan, and of course, we will have a great time talking about what this means for the agricultural sector, the economy. Of course, the president saying Nigeria's heading towards food sufficiency, and that's a great one. Well, that's the much that we can take. We hope you enjoyed every bit of the conversation. 2 hours of great talk. We will come through tomorrow, and the time again is 7 o'clock. If you missed out on any part of the conversation, it will be great to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is at PlusTvAfrica, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Messi Bobo.
And I'm Kofi Bartels. So certainly will return tomorrow, same time on Plus TV Africa. Thanks for your time.